I just spent 2 weeks in Africa, so I'm behind. These are due on Friday.
Around and between PT, your body.
Yeah, it's all catch up. Once you're on the same continent, it's all catch up.
Healing.
I was great last year.
Okay.
That's.
How's it going?
It's not fun.
So I've been trying to
figure
figure
out
out
territory
territory
is
with
born.
capital.
Mhm.
My co-chair is
It's like year 5.
Oh my God.
Uh-huh.
Like just constant
And,
That's nice.
isolated.
I know it's his mother was.
Well,
and
and
he was born in Haiti.
part of it too.
And I just wanted to give her like a gift.
So
Welcoming him to the floor.
It's very special and not seeing. And
Would you help me with that?
I will tell you.
You will tie up like.
Yeah. I'll try and get a Camden Harbor.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure I will invoice you. Taylor, yeah.
I'm not asking you, no, I'm not asking you for anything, that's very.
That's great.
So, don't ask us to do that, he's trying to just street with it.
I'm done.
Yeah, he's my neighbor, he's the one actually, that convinced me to go on the budget committee, and so here I am. He's responsible for these hours. So that one day, something goes straight out, the only people that can do it is, can I?
Got the rankings,
Yeah, and I was with my. Fly with, yeah, which fibers, and I said, guessing you want to ask for the head. You're gonna have the whole, we've never seen that.
And.
Yeah.
Rare cup.
And, we're having a big meeting in,
Thank you.
we always bring them in Guatemala.
Okay.
Like the week of then just like.
Yeah, special, how about like a.
What exactly?
Like
Whatever, you have money.
a crab.
Paid for it, it's really explained, it's really very broad.
Something.
So,
Yeah. Sweet kids like. Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah. Surface fly.
Thank you.
Oh. Nice thought, Sophie, thank you.
Thank you.
Can't remember the last time I was in this room.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, I can't.
I'm signing your life away. I'm not. Katrina, just give me the black eye.
See.
No, I'm sorry. You'll be the 26th.
This is nice paper that this was on the wedding day.
Start this. You're putting me on. Oh, yeah. So I'm done, but not just gonna be more
To make it really feel.
No, so sometimes people register, vote, but, sign, but they're not registered to vote.
Oh, gotcha.
And so Katrina checks the signature and it goes.
Yeah.
So when we move like 5 more, so.
Oh, is that your?
Yeah. Sure. No.
I'm not being pressured.
Just walking into this.
I'm doing pretty well.
Do you mean it?
25. We always.
Sorry, I'm so glad you're here. I thought you were gonna. It was starting.
Oh, I, I was kind of excited by her position, you know, for many reasons.
I'm glad I didn't do that.
Great to see you. You too.
Thank you. Perfect.
All right.
There an agenda?
This way. Good job.
Action,
Thanks for your.
No.
notes of me.
of course,
It's been a while.
It's very.
Wild.
usual.
Here we are.
Imagine.
Did you see the eclipse? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
It was like top of Sugarloaf. That life changing.
We went up to Monson. We have friends on campus.
Cool, where is that? I don't know.
It was about, well, it's like 2 hours, although just getting through the town of Monson was 45 extra minutes.
I took.
Yeah, oh, it's mind blowing.
I did, right.
Like, I can't hire, sorry, really gonna prove it, always you can't be.
There was what's weird for me though, is that I was so hung up that.
Just give me one more, but I mean, it definitely was. But I just got back from the, definitely, I can't see what Marty was like, wow. Everybody does only find their paper.
Yeah, I didn't.
Well, now you give me on paper.
It's just actually on chair 25, but she has to take homework.
There's gonna be at least.
I don't do that.
Come meet them, would you guys, you're actually just like, have her committee director, because we have so many friends today. I know, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Robert.
Excellent.
That's good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Are there extra packets?
Yes, not for guests, I didn't print, oh, yeah.
Yeah, come closer because you're gonna need to see the screen and we
No,
cannot.
I'm
make-
telling, no,
Oh, you're
no.
saying.
Oh, sorry, you guys come sit right here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry,
The green-
like the long way.
We're trying to get.
Hi, Mike, will you sit right there by the
Hey, Mike.
computer?
We have a couple of roadblocks.
I know. This is not my favorite for this reason.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get more down in line. And I'm not, I'm advising because in order to go in the way. Do you guys want to do that? You need to give us. All right.
My job is done.
Here we are. Let us go.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. Excellent. Well, all right. All right, so welcome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to the, I love you guys. I'm so happy to see you. You know, it's been a long time, because last time I was on Zoom, right? Because I was somewhere.
We were in New York.
I was in New York, right, for the Commission on the Status of Women. That's what I was doing. All right.
You're forgiven.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Because I love working with this group. You have so much energy and commitment and passion and ideas, so it's a treat to be amongst you. All right, so today we have a busy agenda. Seth, thank you for being my vice chair.
Of course.
I really enjoy working with you, although this time was a bit disconnected, but I know that we were connected in spirit, so thank you
It's
so much.
all good.
Am I the
Of
spirit?
course.
You're the spirit. You're the spirit connector. All right, so the first order of business is the approval of the March 12, 2024 meeting minutes. Does anyone have comments or edits? Yeah.
Just under, there's an events header and 2 bullets down. It says moving forward, we want, it's missing probably the word to use.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You'll correct that?
Yes.
Excellent. Anything else on the minutes from the March meeting? Do I have a motion to approve? So Ray, Susan made a motion and Ray seconded. All in favor? Eight in favor. Rick, is not here, right? Rick Patrick is having a new job. Yeah.
He'll still be able to be part of
He's
the
he'll be
committee.
able to be part of it, but he just started, he's in the AG's office now, so, and he has a new trial starting quickly, so very shortly, tomorrow.
So he's out of town.
He's in Augusta a lot,
Yeah.
but anyway,
I've seen more of him in the car.
yeah, or on Zoom probably, but anyway. Audra is not with us.
She is not gonna give an update and she didn't really have anything for me to pass on,
Okay.
so we're okay with the update.
There
Yeah.
was a thing in the minutes though, from the last one, I asked Audrey to provide an update on the status of grant funds at the next meeting. Did she present anything to you, give you any numbers or anything, where we stand?
Oh, I can definitely provide that.
They don't even know how
Can you send it out to all of
Which
us?
is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I know I have some questions, and I think I've heard from other people too, as to how much has been spent so far, how much was going to be environmental, et cetera, et cetera.
Not
It's a-
1.6
I
million
know,
as
I
stated
know.
in the newsletter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how much a gentleman to your right is getting
Yeah,
to.
yeah. We can,
Yeah, we
Audra
can-
can provide, I mean, it has to get approved, it gets approved by the select board,
Yeah.
every budget, and like our invoices get approved by the select board every month. So that all of this is very public, so we can, she can send you whatever she has in short.
Excellent. All right, so I'm turning it over to you, right? Vina?
Yes, and I'm gonna turn it over to, well, I guess first I'll introduce, as we all know, Mike Burke, from Interflu, so thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Mike.
And we are gonna introduce the View Shed. I'll put you guys on this tech setup is a little goofy, so bear with me on the line. But View Shed folks, if you just wanna say hi, introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us. My name's Eamon Hutton. I'm a principal landscape architect with Viewshed, and I'm joined by Jamie. Jamie, you want to say hi?
Hey, everybody. Really excited to work with you all.
And just to provide a little bit of context, so Viewshed is a sub-consultant to Interflu. They're being paid under the NIFWIP grant, and they're engaged, their scope of work includes initially some help in some charrettes and conceptual landscape designs for 3 sites. Montgomery Dam, and then eventually the Milton Street and Knox Mill sites as well. So here tonight, they're just along to listen in and meet everybody and meet the committee. And I believe the plan is for the next MERCAC meeting, they'll be here and hosting into the charrette.
Cool.
Folks around Montgomery Dam as well, or the Montgomery, I'll just say the Montgomery Dam landscape context overall, so. Anyway.
And they're gonna have a charrette with us first alone, or is it part of the Montgomery Dam charrette?
Yeah, we can figure out the details a little bit more clearly, but they have the ability to have engagements with a few different groups within their contract.
And folks from Viewshed on Zoom, the people around the table are the members of the Megunticook River Citizens Advisory Committee. And the people you see behind on chairs are members of the public. And traditionally, we open the floor to questions from the public at the end of our meeting, because this committee has a lot of work to do, so we focus on the work of the committee. And then at the end, we have the public ask questions. So just so that you know who's in the room with you.
I was gonna have us introduce ourselves to them, but I think since they'll be here at the next meeting, it might be
We
more.
can do it quickly.
Okay.
It's nice.
Alright, Sophie.
I'm Sophie Romana. I'm a select board member and I'm the chair of this committee, which is my favorite committee.
Deb Chapman.
Susan Todd,
Ray Andreessen.
Elfie Owen.
Tyler Smith.
Ellen Reynolds, Courtney Cease.
Seth Taylor.
You guys didn't want to give like a fun fact about yourself. That was a little too quick.
And there's a ninth, his name is Rick Thackeray, and he couldn't be with us today, but he's very much part of the committee as well.
I think we have Chris Nolan on the line as well, who is also on the select board. And then we have Forrest and Julia, who are with FB Environmental, and then Cam is with Interloop. So lots of people here to support the town of Camden through this process.
Move the little owl thing so that they can see.
Yeah, they see who's ever, I guess they can like, if you talk, it'll go to you.
Oh, the
I
owl is
can
in
try
my
and-
back,
It's just these cords are all so short.
but if you put it here.
Yeah.
I
like it up close and personal, sorry. People.
Yeah, my back is my best feature. I'm known for it. All right,
Great. I'll move on. Susan, I didn't really, I know we've talked a little bit, but did you want to give an update on our meeting with the library board before, or do you want?
after?
Or we can do it after. I mean, I think it's important probably to work with the view shed and.
Well, today we're actually not gonna work with them on anything. We just wanted to introduce them and have them listen in on part of our conversation today. So they'll be here in person and in a more functional, more interactive way at the next meeting. Yeah.
So the Camden Library Board, the Harbor Building Committee met with 5 people. It was Mike Burke and
Matt Bernier and Jamie Carter from NOAA, and then Mike and myself.
Right. And we basically asked questions about Harbor Park, what the status was going to be, and the trustees would like to be a part of anything that is decided that affects the park, basically. And the committee is working on a smaller group, which will be 5 people, and hopefully will be
Nimble.
exactly. And a new statement as well.
Thank you.
Which
That's
we
what
will
I was
have
gonna
tomorrow.
ask. Yeah.
And I heard it was a very productive meeting, so thank you so much for holding this meeting. It was
Thank you for
really,
allowing
really
us
important.
to meet, and we would like to continue to meet this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, I think Susan read the library statement a couple meetings ago, and I think it was helpful for this committee to understand, but I also think it left a lot of questions of what is the relationship between the library and the town and the ownership of Harbor Park and the seawall and the dam, like how is it all connected? And I think this new statement's goal is to help clarify a lot of that so that this committee specifically understands how to work with the library board and sort of what your goals are, what your role is in all of this and how we can work together to move forward. So
Even though Harbor Park is owned by the town, the library trustees are the trustees of the park. So that's why, and that it was left, Mary Louise Curtis Bach left that to the library.
Susan's becoming our historian and she sent some really good information over the
Good.
last
Was
few
that
days.
helpful?
Yeah.
Good.
I think it'd be helpful to share more of that with the committee. And
Yeah.
I know that you guys are working on updating the board. So maybe after that, after you update your board, you can do a similar presentation to this committee to help get everyone on the same page and understand what you've learned.
Susan, is the library board consulting with the Olmsted Foundation or
Yes.
who's the Olmsted?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and we've been doing a lot of research in the History Center, reading Mary Louise Curtis Bach's letters, as well as doing research on the Olmsted Network, looking at the different drawings that were done, especially in the 30s when the dam was changed, and looking at the grading and the plant specifications. And also there was an email that came to us that the park was updated for some ADA compliance.
It was updated?
Yes, 20 years ago. They're a minimal update
Yeah,
of ADA compliance,
which we should do better off. We should.
but we should, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, if you go on Google Earth and you go back in time, there's a 2004 aerial photo on Google Earth that shows the park kind of torn up in
Right, right.
various states of construction.
When the park went on the National Historic Register, a grant was given, or there was money applied for to redo the park, and that was done about 20 years ago.
I actually had a call this morning with the CEO of the Olmsted Network, Dee Dee. She was great. Jennifer Gramado was able to join from the library group. And so she and I met with her for about an hour this morning. It was really helpful to understand what questions she had and how we can work with them moving forward. And one piece that we want to make sure that we include in any future grant applications, and potentially if we can do it sooner, is that they would like to come and advise on how to maybe work with the landscape architects and make sure that there's some acknowledgement towards the Olmsted legacy and understand how it all fits into the fabric of the community. And she was great, and she was very excited about this project. And I think it was very helpful for her to understand how the dam is different than the seawall, which is different than Harbor Park, and how it's all is all connected, but really understand the pieces of the area, which I think will be helpful for all of us today, again, to hear from Mike Burke in terms of how it's all connected from an aerial view of, I'll go over that in a little bit, which he did this recently, and it was very helpful for me and for, I think, some folks in the library to get oriented again. Anything else? Any questions? Yeah.
On that, your conversation about Homestead and everything, are there any notes or anything like that, instead of you just said, that you can share with all the committee?
Not really. She's really just wants to be part of the conversation, which is awesome. And she really just wants to understand. I think she was happy to hear that folks from NOAA are, she had a question if any money could be put towards, the landscaping. Like she was under the impression that if we got money from NOAA, it was just to remove a dam, and that was, wildly not accurate. And so it was important to help her understand that NOAA really wants this project to, remain a park that's in the Olmsted legacy and is part of Camden as it is today. And that's a key component to what NOAA is looking for with this project. Yeah.
Last meeting you mentioned that there might be a presentation to us.
Yeah.
About Olmsted. Is this still happening?
I don't know. She was more hesitant. She was just like, they want to get paid for their services. And so I think we're trying to figure out what that would look like. But I think she'd be happy to have phone calls with any of us, and maybe we could patch her into a call here, but she didn't really have much to say. She sent some interesting articles, which I can send around, but they were from Camden. So like you've probably seen them before. But at this point, I think she's more getting up to speed. There's a bajillion Olmsted parks. And so she's not like I would say they're not experts on Harbor Park. But
okay, so if we have questions, I mean, we could gather questions and ask her, because there is just, seems like there's some different opinions about Olmsted, like.
Totally. And I think that's something that the library group is really working on right now, is clearing up what parts of the park are Olmsted and which aren't, and what is, I think there's a lot of confusion around that. And that's what I'm hearing from the library, is that they're clarifying that right now. Which I think will be helpful to this committee, because I think that is a central point to this committee, right, is honoring that. I don't think anyone wants to destroy the park by any means, and so making sure that is in conversation. But I think having some questions gathered by this committee for the library and for Olmsted people would be great, if we want to be specific in gathering those.
Right, and maybe we wait for your.
Public questions are gonna wait till the
To
end.
get the name of the person you mentioned.
Her name's Dee Dee.
Dee
Dee Dee, I'll send it out later, but yeah, sorry, I am gonna.
Yeah, we're gonna keep questions from the
Yeah,
public at
Susan.
the end.
Right. I was gonna say, you can go on the Olmsted Network, and on the Olmsted Network, you can research the Camden Park. It's called Camden Shore Development. And it's 7997 number. I'll look it up and give it to you, but you can look it up and you can see all of the drawings that were done in the 30s. There also is a whole set of letters, which I haven't read yet, but I've looked at most of the drawings. There are also drawings of Village Park in Camden, Village Green. There's drawings of the shipyard in Camden, which is interesting. So there are tons of things from Olmsted in the 30s.
Yeah, you should, sorry, I just looked up that email that you sent me. It was 07997. You should send this email or some version of it to the committee, because I think it was helpful.
Right. So there is a online resource network that you can go to, and then you can go to Flickr and pull up all of the pictures. It's really cool.
We should put that on the website.
It's
Yeah.
really,
Resource, yeah.
it's really cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
I think, I was thinking for our next newsletter, we should have it be all around this Olmsted, the library, Harbor Park, Olmsted, that whole connection, because so much has happened even in the last couple months.
So, sorry, you might have
No.
already said this, but that's okay. Is the library's gathering information on this, and do they have like a deadline that they're gonna send stuff out, or they're?
We are putting together, we're meeting again tomorrow, and we're putting together a statement.
Right.
Jennifer has been doing research, on Mary Louise Curtis Fox letters. Larry Ward, who's also a trustee, and I've been doing research on Olmsted and researching all of the tenets and sort of the philosophies of Olmsted. So I have a pretty good list of the things that he would like to see or would put into a park. Great, so.
You're gonna gather the information.
Right, and I can
and
give
put it
you a lot of
together
that for a
somehow.
newsletter too, if you want.
Okay,
The basic tenets of what his philosophies are.
yeah, maybe we should.
Yeah.
The newsletter team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great content.
Let's rock and roll.
All right.
Do you want to frame this conversation before Mike starts?
Any other questions related to the library book? I guess also any questions for Viewshed while we have them before the next meeting?
I was gonna, also mention that, Viewshed is a recently formed company, half of which was Terrence J. DeWin Architects, whom many of you may actually be familiar with from the prior work, comprehensive plan around the Town Landing and the Riverwalk, and I think Ray, I saw your name in some of those documents and things, so I did want to just point that out, that they do have, the folks there do have, some connectivity, to Camden, even though in name, organization is in New London.
And they're working on a pretty cool project down in Rockport that they were sharing with me the other day, so.
Oh, we should go visit. We should go take a look. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm sure they can, next time through, I'm sure they could give a little bit of an overview, but they're working on the project, the town park there at the drive-in site in the school, lots there. So you may have, also interfaced with them a little bit there if you've been, sitting in on any of those meetings.
Excellent.
Good. Team? All right. I'm gonna bring, well, I can't do anything. Let me see. We're gonna lose the faces, but we know you're all there. Oh, boy. So it's actually on this one. So,
No, it's on that one.
We need better tech.
it's crazy.
Actually, it would have been better in the French conference room. for
I
this
know, the
today.
French conference room is so much better. I was sad when we shifted.
Yeah. It's okay.
It wasn't my first time. Warm in here.
Yeah.
I'm just-
I just got back from 2 weeks in Africa, so I'm like, I'm freezing. I'm like, I'm not. Full screen mode?
Go with that. Do you wanna
So you
do
want.
set context? Would you like me to give a set of context?
You get it.
All right.
It's got the-
So, good to be here with everybody. Basically there's, everybody, there's a range, Montgomery Dam and the environment, park of all the sites along the river, each of them have their eccentricities and personalities and things like that. And certainly the Montgomery Dam, and Harbor Park definitely have theirs and, or its and, essentially now's the time to, really pivot and really work towards, finding, some optional solutions, alternative solutions, that ultimately are gonna feed into the process that the town has set up for November. our activities are really gonna be focusing on working with you folks to come up with solutions for the site. And I think the context is that, there's differences of opinion around the park and around the dam, but ultimately, both the park and the dam have issues that need to be addressed by the town and the citizens and so I think the framework and the context is finding solutions from here forward. And so tonight, we just wanted to take the opportunity to get everybody thinking about the park and thinking about Montgomery Dam and have some preliminary conversations. We all know that there's been work done, a range of work done in the past. Going forward, we'll be leveraging that, but really, we're just restarting the conversation and getting to the point where we've got, vetted options and solutions for everybody to consider. So tonight, I guess we can, just starting with this nice drone image that was taken a few years ago in support of the studies ongoing at the time. Obviously an incredibly special part of the world. And so if we want to step forward, see, I guess I can do that, huh? Maybe. And so in terms of objectives for tonight, really just readjusting our focus on Montgomery Dam and the Harbor Park and some preliminary discussions of, important factors to consider as we continue in the evaluation process and then set the stage for the next steps. So really it's a conversation tonight. What are the important factors to consider in selecting alternatives? We'll be working through all that. Tonight's a preliminary conversation. We'll be continuing to have these conversations in the next meeting and on through the spring. So, but tonight is really just to kind of get the conversation restarted and moving forward. So this
It's not gonna work.
actually not working. Just a quick technical.
No, but we can put the owl on the table, can we? No.
I think before, the cord is too short.
Yeah. Owl is not happy with what I'm doing. Oh, muffins. Sorry, people on Zoom, if I give you the.
So, here's the plan for tonight. And let's see if we can step forward here and advance the slides. Is that in a different computer now?
No, just keep moving your mouse like that way and then it'll come over here.
Gotcha. Yeah, so the plan, we're gonna take everybody knows the area, but we're just gonna take a bit of a virtual tour around, look at some imagery, and start looking at the future then. Looking at the future and towards solutions and then kind of facilitated preliminary discussion about important factors to consider, objectives, if you will, and thinking about and selecting options. And then at the end, we'll of course talk about next steps and question answer session. So just in terms of starting with our virtual tour, I don't know if I can move this out of the way here.
I think you click, oh.
Here it is.
Scooch it over that way.
That way.
Yeah.
How big is it?
All right, so in terms of our virtual tour, I'm gonna reposition myself. Slow it down.
I think we should turn off the light also a little bit to see better. Oh, but
we
it
gotta
gets,
stay awake.
we get, well, I'm fully.
So over a series of aerial images, or I'll just attempt to set the landscape context for us as we circle around. And if I can find the mouse here again, there we go. Actually, get up on that. Okay. Yeah, so we'll work our way around from the bottom of the screen. Obviously, we have the town landing, town docks, things like that. Main Street, of course, the Montgomery Dam, at the top of the bedrock outcrop. Its impoundment extends beneath these buildings, beneath Main Street, almost all the way up to, and in certain circumstances, reaching up to the Brewster Building vicinity, just downstream of Washington Street. And then as we cycle on around, of course, we've got the Harbor Park area, and then at the other bound, we've got the library park, library grounds, and on over to the boathouse and beyond. All of which, set the context of the environment with which we're working here. So we'll go ahead and our time advancing the slides. Yeah, so we'll just then zoom in a little bit on the immediate area around the dam and the park. This particular image, I think this is a 2014 image showing sort of a lower tide condition. And you can see quite a low tide condition, as you can see the shoreline extending almost all the way out to the dinghy docks. Low water in the river at this time as well. Really, all of the flow out of the river is either just going down through the penstock or leaking through the dam in this case. And then, as many of you know, historically, there was a second spillway over in this outlet channel over here with, this late 1700s, early 1800s dam shunting water over to the grist mill. And then into the second impoundment, which would then shunt water over through the anchor factory and the various incarnations of manufacturing, formerly in the town landing. So then we're seeing here the same view, but at a higher tide. And you see, as we all know, tides reaching up into the seawall. Park. Cycle to the next slide here. So here's just a few views then, looking at the dam proper during a higher flow type of situation. And also thinking about the tides, both now and into the future, in this general area. So, starting with the park, or starting with the dam, you'll see flows all the way across the spillway. You see the proximity to water levels relative to the buildings over the impoundment. And then with respect to the tides, so this particular image was taken during a coastal storm event, high water event. But then I've got some lines superimposed on here that show the highest so highest astronomical tide or highest annual tide as of 2018. And then I've superimposed on there a couple of additional sea level rise scenarios that correlate with the recommended levels in the main climate action plan for 2050 and 2100.
Okay, Mike, can you just tell us what the rise is in the tide, those astronomical tides, what they're predicting for 2050 and 2100?
Yeah, so 2100 would be 3.9 feet. I think 2050 is 1.5, 1.6, something like that.
But I was gonna ask another question, because we've seen, like in 2023, the high tide line of 2018 probably is gone, right? Compared to what happened in 2023.
Yeah, this
Or
high
is
tide, they're within sort of, you know, the define, there's a range of very similar definitions, yeah, so I guess I would ask you to maybe just ignore the 2018. It's just like in general, a high tide line, that, is being exceeded, you know, probably monthly,
Right.
at this stage, yeah.
Right, because we've had those events in 2023 and early 2024 where we had the whole harbor was flooded, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
so something to take into account. I mean, it's only getting worse, right? It's not getting better. Right? We're moving towards 2050 faster maybe than we thought we would in 2018 maybe.
Yeah, and so, yeah, exactly. And so then this slide actually shows, you know, sort of typical storm tide that, you know, probably is, you know, almost every month as well, occurring during coastal storms. And then those same sea level rise scenarios on top of that, looking at 2050 and 2100. And in this case, I'm showing for 2100, two cases. The main climate action plan has these two different criteria, which are sort of interesting, but they say you commit. So for example, for 2100, for just general purpose things, you commit to 3.9 feet, but you prepare for really critical infrastructure and things like that. And so under the most current NOAA sea level rise projections, that would be about 6 feet, yeah, 2100. And then, yeah, and so then here, this is just looking at present sea levels. Again, we're looking at the high tide line, general high tide line, and then if you map the FEMA 1% coastal flood for current sea levels, you're well into the harbor park and the landing area. And then if you add sea level rise on top of that, just to kind of give a sense of how the rising seas lay on the landscape here, with respect to, you know, thinking about the future of these areas.
Any questions before we move on from this? And I did print, Mike printed these maps as well, so we can look at them after the conversation, after the presentation.
Yeah, and then we've been talking about Olmsted. Thanks to Tyler, he shared this with me recently. He may have shared it with others as well. I have not seen, I've seen the grading plans and the existing surveys and things previously, but I had not seen, this is actually the planting plan for the renovation in the 30s, superimposed over the current landscape. So yeah, really interesting. I think Tyler at the library meeting was pointing out, you know, there's existing buildings and whatnot still in place at the time of the park upgrades, which were essentially grandfathered or grandmothered in at that time because there were important people who owned those buildings. So really the confines of the park, you know, Tyler was pointing out, really kind of come to this corner here, which subsequently there's seawall that extends over towards the boathouse.
That's very cool superimposition.
Yeah.
Really, thank you, Tyler. Really.
So it's all about looking towards future visions for this part of the world. And I'm showing you some graphics that many of you have seen before, just as, you know, get our minds thinking about what some things may look like in the future. I'm not saying that any one of these is the preferred or recommended choice, for the context of the conversation tonight. But I'm just flashing up some graphical content here. This one in particular has, some details related to, the dam removal proposals. So if you skip forward to the next one. This one is looking at some of the options that Tony and his team were able to take a look at and advance further. And option which retains some portion of the dam, but installs fish passage and upgrades to the park as well.
Mike, do these all take care of the sea rise and storm surge predictions?
I would say that,
I mean, do they map over this stuff you just showed us?
yeah, I would say that all of the solutions, none of them are sort of the final solution that would have everything resolved. I think for all of these options, there would be additional things to sort out. And so, for example, understanding a little bit better what has to happen with the seawall relative to sea level rise and stability, and whether or not there's adaptations there for, some of the other things that have been mentioned related to access to the inner harbor area and things like that. So that would regard all of these as, it may be that the ultimate solution has pieces of all these things, but I would regard that none of these are fully comprehensive and with some solutions.
So none of these have solved what you said earlier, that there were problems with the park and with the harbor. Some of these all, to some extent, leave some vulnerabilities.
I guess I would say these all have additional areas to be developed in their design development before they're ready to address all those factors.
A nicer way to phrase it.
And that's something we really want to talk about tonight, though, after this presentation, is get into the what and why and how do we address, how can we have our cake and eat it too? Like, what are all, if we could have everything we wanted on the table, let's throw it out there and talk about how we can get there together. So that the next drawings can incorporate those as much as possible, while acknowledging the facts.
Yeah.
Today.
So just showing some additional graphics here, these are some things along the lines that we may continue to talk about going forward, just some little detail sketches, with Amy, Eamon and Jamie, some considerations of, how projects may affect circulation around in the area, what it looks like more tangibly from, the scale of people interacting in the park areas, the concepts around access to the intertidal area. There've been a number of considerations also relative to things related to buildings and whatnot. Going forward.
Can you explain, sorry, can you go back? I have a hard time understanding the first graph on the top left. So that's a section. So I'm
Yeah, so-
looking at the Montgomery Dam from the parking lot, right? Or am I not understanding?
This section,
Yeah,
this is just a cut through one of the alternatives that, so the upper lawn area is over here.
Right.
It's a side cut. So in this particular case, this is up on the upper lawn area, and this section was then down through a channel that would be associated for the fish passage.
thank you.
Yeah, just some additional content to think about, a range of fish passage, completed projects and a range of potential things that may be part of the solution here. Starting in upper left, it's the Walton Mills dam removal, with that dam was founded on bedrock, and so you get a sense of, and Matt Foster was here a couple of months ago and spoke as part of the speaker series, Parks and Rec director, but you see the ledge that the dam was founded on there. You see some of there's now an overlook where the dam abutment was. guess I can point these things out as well. Yeah, and so then moving around, this is an example of a Daniil fishway. This happens to be up in Dover Foxcroft. And then here's a Pool and Weir fishway that was constructed recently in Bristol Mills, last few years. Has some, still in process in this photo, it has some additional aesthetic elements. Somewhat of the style of the fishway at Damascotta Mills as well. So some examples.
Mike, can I just ask a question? The one on the Bristol Mills over there on the right. I
Yeah,
see the waterfall up at the top. What is the height of that from, I mean, the height of the water? How high are the fish going to have to get up?
yeah, I think the head loss at Bristol Mills is about 15 feet.
About 15 compared with what we have here in Montgomery Dam is 17?
Sort of depends on full spillway height down in mean tide, I think is in excess of 20.
Okay, so a few more feet than that. And how far out, I mean, what is the length of that fishway going up to get the scale up there? I mean, is it comparable to what we are looking at down here in Harbor Park?
Well, so because the vertical, these Pool and Weir fishways like this can only accommodate a certain slope range. And so the vertical height at Bristol Mills is lower than the Montgomery case. And so depending again on what the ultimate spillway elevation would be, but I think in all cases it would be longer here. It would need to be longer.
Right.
So this particular case at Bristol Mills, there's a little bit of switchbacking in here, and then they come over and there's a big corner, and then they go back and up around.
Yeah.
So this past the spillway, and then whereas Damascotta Mills, it's very tortuous, with switchbacks and things like that. You've probably seen and much higher elevation. So, okay, yeah, just circling back around, example of a, nature-like fishway, essentially a Pool and Weir nature-like fishway, and some additional, completed dam removal projects. This one happens to be in, Andover, Massachusetts, site of a former dam, with, both of these, historical buildings one is a continuum of care facility, and another is sort of condominium complex. And then this is the Sakuraba project, where dam was removed over an exposed, bedrock ledge.
When we had the community talk with people from Somerville, Somer Sound, I think it would be good to add the Somer Sound pictures as well, because I think that's a drawing. You went, Susan.
Yes.
Yeah. It was also an interesting approach to the fish ladder. If we could add it to the registry, it would be cool.
Sure.
Mike, can you remind me of the percent grade that you can have between the nature like was like a 4% grade, or is it? Because I know the highly engineered one, that's the advantage of the highly engineered, may not be as aesthetically appealing, but it was like a 7% grade or something like that.
Yeah, nature like generally about 5% or less, but preferably even flatter. But step nature lakes like this for smaller channels, 5%. And then Pool and Weir fishways up to 10%. But their footprint is quite large. And then Daniil fishways, the Daniil fishways, you'll see them in guidelines up to 16%, but really nobody will approve one anymore that's steeper than like 12%.
Okay, thank you.
And then, through that progression, you start to drop out various species of fish as well. Okay. Yeah, just a few other teaser images before we start talking about, some of the objectives. thank Tyler, and others for some of these teaser images. But yeah, just showing various aspects of, pulling the public into the interface, with Inner Harbor and some unique solutions, around setting, edges, along coastal areas. And also accommodating changes in grade and things like that. And also some components of, is actually showing a range of potential green to gray infrastructure types of living shoreline approaches. So all these could all be some of the considerations that could go in the design solutions here. Okay. So I guess we're gonna then segue into, just this discussion about key factors. Do you want to pause and just check in to see if there's any questions or any comments at this point?
Talk a little bit about Harbor Park and some of the design elements or whatever there. But is this committee actually commissioned to do anything about Harbor Park? I don't think so.
Well, I think whatever happens with the dam, like it's all connected, right? And I think that's what we're trying to.
And that's also why we have the library committee, we have this open dialogue, where we're trying to pull people in.
And
Because we need to have a coherent approach, so.
And I think an important piece that I've heard from the NOAA folks is that there's money on the table to help the library and Harbor Park as part of this project, because it's a resilience project. It's not just, fish project or, dam removal. And I think that was one thing I meant to mention in our debrief on the library group, that was something that really resonated, and it sounded like every single person in that room agreed something needs to be done, right? And I think.
Well, I think the biggest concern, at least for the library, is that with the seawall, it's coming down.
Right.
It's dangerous, it's not safe. And if the dam is modified in any way, if you're applying for a grant for the dam, will the seawall be included? Is it all part of it? And is it also part of maybe the Main Street Bridge that will affect part of that? Is it one grant that will cover all of that?
Yeah.
And who in fact is responsible for repairing the seawall part? That is a problem,
Yeah.
a question.
But I would say that this committee, early on, we did have clear definition that the watershed for the Megunticook River extended out to the head of the harbor.
Yes.
So it would include that area.
And and we go all the way up to the lake. Like that's another thing is, today we're focused on Montgomery Dam, but I think as we talked about for the last almost 2 years or however long we've been hanging out, it's all encompassing. And so I think that's pretty special that there is that opportunity, that it's not just a piecemeal approach, because then you have a lot more, funds can be used more efficiently and more effectively, to solve a lot of.
And also
Concern.
aesthetically, we can have like something that's coherent aesthetically, instead of having, doing the Montgomery Dam now and then in 3 years Harbor Park. And so it'll be nice to have just like an ensemble.
Well, and if it's torn up, you might as well tear up the area once,
Exactly.
rather than to do it 2 or 3 different times.
Exactly.
And the reason I ask that, is there a possibility that a fish flag or whatever could actually be placed partially, whatever, on what is now what we call library grounds, the Harbor Park?
It's owned by the town. That property is owned by the town.
So I mean, that is an option for the designers to look at, right?
You're correct, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and I had a couple of comments, as any community I worked with, and I'm pretty sure yours is the same. Ultimately, when the conversations get on down the road, financing comes into it, and particularly net financing that the town is responsible for. And so, these resiliency components, the more you can stack objectives you gain greater leverage for funding. And so, adding in, and in particular, right now, a lot of the funding, has strong resiliency objectives associated with it, community resiliency, environmental resiliency. And so the more you can, add those factors in, you make, projects more attractive to funders and less out of the town's pockets, essentially.
And we know, I mean, again, when we look at all the storms we've had recently, that building a resilient harbor and river is really critical to the town. It's a huge asset for us. So, and also something beautiful, I keep coming back. I know in separate discussions, I keep saying, I'm excited about this project because it's also the opportunity for us to create something beautiful that can be a showstopper, that can be just so much better than the concrete we have right now. And really make it an attractive part of Camden. So building on the history, but really seeing something that is amazingly beautiful. And I really want to infuse the community with this idea that we can make it beautiful. We don't need to settle for something utilitarian or resilient. It can be both. It can be resilient and beautiful, and it can really enhance our town. So I really want to switch the conversation over and think, this is an opportunity for also something aesthetically stunning.
Yeah, I mean, it's the, coming from the harbor, it's sort of both the back door and the front door, it's Camden, right?
Yeah.
And so many people, that is their first, interaction with Camden coming in that way. And, so, you have the opportunity to, result in something that's pretty seamless, through that landscape. And part of the reason why to start the way we did tonight, just kind of broadening our sideboards a little bit to think about it as a whole.
And I was also really intrigued by the project in Farmington that had like a 24-hour approach where the park at night takes on a different personality with really cool lighting, and so people can come and enjoy the park at night. So it's not just a daytime activity, but we can also think about the lighting, the landscaping with our friends from Viewshed. And really create something that's a really cool experience, not just, a few benches overlooking a dam, right? But something that's more like a park where we can enjoy a really nice time. So yeah, let's broaden our horizon and be bold. It's exciting.
Did you have a?
I'm just curious, are those local main sites right there, the tree on the bottom?
Yeah, all over the world.
Okay.
Yeah, I think some of these are Australian, but, we were talking the other day, though, also though, kind of looks like Acadia in some ways. And
Yeah, it does.
Scooty
Point, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Courtney,
So
hold on, Courtney and then Susan.
I was just wondering if it would be possible to create design options like the Danielle and the full and weir for specifically to Montgomery, just to see what it would look like. Is that something that's gonna be worked on or?
Yeah, I mean, and then it's part of, I think probably goes hand in hand with, some of the work that Tony and his team did with respect to the, fish pass, that type of solution has a little bit more focused, fish passage within a smaller footprint and things like that. And so I think we'll explore those, and we'll talk about it, in terms of the next steps, a little bit later, but we'll have the activity here with Viewshed. We're also gonna just be dusting off, the fish passage designs and we have Kleinschmidt Kleinschmidt engineers. They're gonna be taking a look at, the other side of, on the other side of the dam removal case of if the dam will retain things like, are there opportunities to make it easier to, operate and things like that, and technical fish passage, and things like that.
Susan?
I was just going to ask with those softer, edges, I guess, to the harbor, how vulnerable are they to weather? Because I know I heard someone say in Sherman Cove that the riprap washed away when we had the storm. And I just wonder if that, I know a straight seawall is very vulnerable because the water gets behind it and comes down. But is that also vulnerable?
Yeah, I think, so this shows a range of, combination of both green, what you call green and gray, infrastructure here. That at the very, at the seawall, at the very head of the inner harbor, there's gonna be some pretty substantial, if you were there in January looking at that, there was some pretty good power there, so. Certainly, there won't be anything that's designed and installed there that's sort of naively done. That careful set of design considerations about, setting the right degree of stability, for those things.
Are there certain designs that are more resilient than others? In other words, it's more of a step back design, is it more resilient than just a flat?
Yeah, I think, anytime you can allow things to run out a little bit, let's see some examples in here. I guess if you could envision like you had just like a vertical seawall back here, something like this where you're allowing things to run up and run back out, and there's some friction along there, and but it's all very stable construction. Is going to be more resilient than something that is rigid and, inflexible concrete wall or something like that. And then, the stack stone walls are wonderful, but, they also are fighting gravity as well. Whereas these are, heavy, but also, embracing gravity a little bit more. So less prone to, toppling.
Any other questions right now? Right.
I have a quick question. On the considerations when you're looking at
No.
design
Sorry.
options, do you also have considerations for the impact of the buildings that are sitting in the way, and the impact that increased flow, if there was not a pond, how that would affect the buildings in all seasons, being flow and ice and freezing ground?
Yeah, I think with respect to those buildings, Chris, there's gonna be pros and cons with any solution. And so, ambient conditions could change, would change, across the gradient of those solutions. And in some instances, it may be more beneficial for material deterioration, and, there could be other cons. So, I think, the impact and, potential mitigations of any of those solutions on the buildings is also an important factor.
What buildings are you talking about? Excuse me.
The handful of buildings that are over the Montgomery Dam impoundment, yeah.
So you move from the seawall upstream to talking about buildings. Not the boathouse. Sorry for interrupting.
So Ken, hold on to your question.
Yeah, no, that was a clarification.
Thank you. I think it's clear.
Well, I would say generally, Ken, we're talking about, the Montgomery Dam and the Harbor Park area in total. And Chris's question was related to an aspect of the Montgomery Dam component of the overall project.
Yep, yeah, you had that right. Those are the ones I was thinking about, basically from probably the back of the Smiling Cow back over to whatever that light bluish building is on the left. What's that? Maybe the backside of Once a Tree or the old village shop. All that have basically struts. Some probably go better into bedrock than others. Maybe it's the Smiling Cow and the Camden Deli that are a little bit more tenuous based on having, what they do have underneath the building supporting them.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm good.
Another piece to all of this that isn't really part of this project, but we need to work in tandem with, is Maine DOT bridge replacement project. And so they have asked that some of these buildings detach from the bridge. And so what does that entail, and how does that fit into this conversation? I don't have those answers, but we are going to keep talking with Maine DOT and understand what they're asking those businesses to do and how that relates to this project. And we've definitely talked with NOAA about funding for supporting some of these businesses in terms of if they do have to change any of their structures. And so we're trying to figure out what that would look like and what what factors are there.
And my
then-
last question, if I may, it'll be the last one. With all the drawings that are presented, none of them show any bit of the dam remaining, and yet the waterfall is one of those, pretty areas in town that a lot of people expect maybe to still be there in some form. And, some form may be a lowered piece, but would a consideration, an option include maybe just a bit lower, but to the level of what it is on the left-hand side and keep it that way on the facing edge. So maybe it's not as tall of a waterfall, but it's still some, while having some, fish ladders around.
Yeah, Chris, there are so the first set of, past renderings, if you will, were dam removal ones. The second set, showing, the option that Tony and his team put together, that option did retain or reconstruct portions of the dam.
Yeah.
And so I think and then the fish ladder, as you retain portions of the dam, you get more into the realm of the technical fishways that we talked about a little bit as well. So I think within the realm of options we're thinking of, it basically on one end of the spectrum is there are dam removal cases, and on the other end, there's options that retain portions of the dam and more technical fish passage options.
Yeah, and those drawings we were looking at just a moment ago with the free flowing river, is that accommodating for the river's natural path to move back to where it would have been, or is that still coming out in some sort of engineered way that is more in line with what it is currently?
Maybe.
Yeah.
In those instances and on the prior slide, the flow is where the sort of the lowest area in the bedrock. If you just took everything, all of the sort of filled areas out, that's where river would gravitate towards.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we're still retaining the constraints associated with the width of the Route 1 dam structure. Correct?
The very one bridge structure.
Thank you.
That's okay.
One bridge structure.
As far as whether or not there are buildings being taken out or the bridge is being widened.
Well, I just see a lot of renderings. It kind of goes to the previous question with regard to natural river flow, but I think not very far upstream. I think there's constraints the only thing I've seen with regard to DOT would have been potentially removing one of the center support structures of that dam, but I don't think there were, I keep saying dam, bridge. But it's my understanding that both bank constraints were gonna remain the same.
I don't think we can speak to, where DOT's at with that. I heard similar things. They're thinking about options that would remove the center pier.
Okay.
But aside from, and I heard that there was some complexities with the buildings on either side, but aside from that, there haven't been.
But you feel the bridge is, as we're working through design options, that's one of our it's a hard.
We know that there's gonna be a bridge there and it's probably not gonna be much wider than it is now.
Right.
Just given everything else going on there. It may not have a center pier, its bed may be adjusted a little bit and things like that, but yeah, I think safe assumption that there's gonna be a bridge there and it's in form, in fact, gonna be probably pretty similar to what it is there, but potentially less prone to debris accumulations and, upgraded and things like that.
Okay.
But it'll be interesting from a timing perspective to know, when Maine DOT is gonna do what and to make sure that we have the information on at least you guys have the information. So.
Well, let's
Yeah.
keep moving on down the road here. So we didn't intend it for some interactive, a little bit of an activity here. I'll step into these and then Bina jump in at any time, but we're just gonna build into some things to think about, really objectives, and how various options at this site, combining all these, features, may be evaluated, leading to a selection of an alternative, or the way people will think about it when they're voting on things. So we're gonna build into it, starting,
And you all have this table in front of you.
we're gonna build up to that table, but piece by piece. So Dina brought forward, some of the ranked priorities from the community survey that was done last fall.
And reminder, this survey was for the river wide, so we are trying to think about it in the context of Montgomery Dam, but yeah.
Yeah, so was the river-wide survey. But we thought it would be interesting to think about, the objectives for this site relative to those priorities. So then we'll go to the next slide here. So then, that in 2019, we had done the feasibility study for Montgomery Dam, and then subsequently the feasibility studies for the rest of the watershed. And in terms of the goals and objectives, that were established in those studies, they really fell into three main buckets, sort of dam maintenance and resilience components, fish passage and ecological, and then sort of historical, aesthetic, and amenity buckets. So that we could step forward. And then the options at Montgomery Dam that have been looked at over time really fall into three buckets as well. At the left, there's for the dam removal and channel restoration range. In the middle there's a partial or full dam reconstruction with fish passage range, and then all the way over at the end, there's sort of a no action, maintaining the status quo or some semblance thereof, or reconstructing the dam, but not necessarily addressing some of the other limitations. So then, that was an interesting exercise then to go down through and look at how well aligned each of those general types of approaches were with the community the ranked priorities. And so you see there's some that have green checks that seem like well aligned in terms of the priorities. There's the orange circles with the dash through, then that seem somewhat aligned. There's the red X's that don't seem to align well with those priorities. And then we've got another range here also that really where there's some input needed. And so we'll step forward to the next slide, highlighting some of those areas where really input is needed to be able to fill out this table. And then we'll go to the next slide. But in addition, when thinking about these specific to Montgomery Dam, there's some additional more specific things that kind of fit in to this range of considerations. For example, here we pull in Harbor Park. That's a nuance that isn't specifically lined out in these community priorities. And at Montgomery Dam, for example, Megunticook Lake isn't necessarily intrinsically linked there, but there is impoundment issues and things like that. So I think our ask of the committee tonight is start to have a conversation of what are going to be the most essential things to include in that, characterization of each of the alternative options that will be informative to help people make selections.
Yeah, I think Mike and I were trying to really think about what are the subcategories under each of these 11 items. And in the feasibility study, there are a lot more specific options, and the table is huge, and you've all seen that, but I think we want to bring it to the MERCAC level and the community level. And so on the next page, you'll see this worksheet that we've designed. And so I would like to have you all sort of take a minute and chat with the friend next to you and tell us, or take 5 minutes by yourselves, and then let's report out about what are these features that are important and why. Let's it would be great to have a conversation around, what about landscape aesthetics is important? Is it the water flowing over the rocks? Is it the impoundment? And then what does public access mean to you? What does that look like? And also, what do you think it means to the community? Because I think you guys are all here representing a lot of folks in the community, which is helpful. And then I think the point of this exercise is to really help us understand the what's and the whys, and then answer these questions so that when Mike and Viewshed start working on these renderings and options and have more visual aids for all of us, it's representative of what's important to you and what we're looking for to accomplish through this project.
Excellent.
So do you want us to rank these things or
Just check boxes.
Check box.
It's all for you. You don't have to turn in anything. But I think we'll regroup and I wanted like 15 minutes, but time is running quickly. So
So it's 5:16. I can, what if it take like 8 minutes, 7 minutes? to Go through that worksheet,
and you guys can talk to each other.
and you can talk to each other. No, it's not private. So
So with all the rain that we've had the
Yep.
last couple of weeks.
Yep.
Has there been flooding at the fire station or in any of the buildings? So I noticed that the gate has been down in Montgomery Dam. And we've had all this rain, and I'm just wondering if the gate has been down and there hasn't been someone there raising it up for all the rain. Are the buildings flooded? Is the, is the Tannery Lane flooded?
I don't know if that's me here for the last 2 weeks, but it's a good question.
Because, one of the big tenets was obviously the dam ought to be considered for removal because of flooding. And yet we've had all this rain, and I know the gate is not working on the sluice way. Did we have flood?
Well, I think,
Well, yeah, that's.
I think the type of events that you would anticipate.
Yeah,
water.
sorry, if we could have only one conversation in the room, because we do have people on Zoom, and I think the questions that Susan are asking are really interesting for everyone. So if you want to have a side conversation, please go outside, but let the committee do its work, please. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, yeah, so Susan was asking if in the recent, all the recent precipitation events, if there had been overbank flooding in the area around Washington Street, and near the public safety building and things like that, and, I would suspect there hasn't been, Susan, and the reason is, none, even though it's striking and, the weather has been wild, in this most recent set of events, nevertheless, there hasn't really been any events that are, really that extraordinary. But there's just been a lot of them. And so, what the hydraulic modeling that we've done shows is that you would expect, some overbank flooding over in that area, more substantial, like pretty infrequent, flooding event, like your 25, 50, 100-year type events. And we just haven't had those, in the recent time when you're speaking.
Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
we know Bayview's underwater and
Right.
the pump station there is completely overwhelmed, so it's a very good question.
Yeah, absolutely. And we probably talked about this a little bit before as well, like what exactly is a flood is a sliding definition depending on who you're asking and who's thinking about it, it's if it's the public works director or the person that runs the sanitary, station is, well, when their equipment is inundated by water and they, compromises their function. Some people, it's when their basement's flooded, and other people, it's.
I noticed that the water level in the town that at Montgomery Dam was quite high, and I just wondered if any of the buildings that were flooded. Wet basin.
Sure, this, the storage, you need this line, I would probably be, going a little better.
Have you done? You've checked all your boxes?
I checked my boxes.
And, I think this is also View Shed will probably have more interesting way of doing this, because they're really good at this. The charrette sessions and understanding what the community priorities are, but I really just wanted to make sure that we captured MRCAC feelings, thoughts, ideas, dreams, desires, so, this will be enhanced upon and improved upon.
Yeah,
For-
because we're thinking of floating into different types of constituencies also to have that
Yeah,
work.
but we'll work
That's
with,
a different plan. We'll
Yeah.
talk about it next time. But also if you feel that a box is missing, that you would, add it.
Flooding.
Well, yeah, flooding if you want. Go for it then.
Yeah, and that was part of it, maybe if you could put that one slide back up,
Yeah.
that kind of had, this one, there, for example, in this community priorities, there's reducing dam maintenance costs, there isn't, though, nevertheless, like we're talking about before, the cost of doing something, and the cost of the town, I guess it's all kind of rolled up there, but, so the question is there anything, one question is there
Yeah.
anything missing from this whole range of considerations? When we did that initial study, that these headings came out of, Harbor Park, the imperiled components of Harbor Park, the seawall, and the challenges of sea level rise were just beginning to be realized at that time, so there wasn't as much focus there, so. So for example, in my eye, that's sort of missing, from those.
The INI. Okay.
Sophie,
Yeah, go ahead.
as we're looking at constraints for View Shed, as we start to look at these designs, obviously, a lot of stuff has been focused on Harbor Park side. On the other side, public landing side, are there opportunities there if space is needed for structures or for we rarely talk about that side of the dam, I think, because it's pretty far away from the natural path of the river, but I guess if something comes up, is that an area of
Yes.
opportunity?
I think it is, because we have that other grant where we're looking at designs for the public landing, right? And so I think I would definitely add it.
Okay,
Yeah. Consider it, absolutely. Again, for the same idea that if we're gonna dig things up and change
Sure.
things, let's do it more.
I am glad you asked that question, because as I was doing this. If we have sea level rise that impacts the public landing, when we have that, we're gonna lose, some really vital, public venue area. And so that makes me think about Harbor Park becoming more important, having more weight on it in terms of the venue where people can gather. I mean, we don't do a ton at the harbor, at the public landing, but we do enough,
Yeah.
Windjammer Festival, that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
No, we do plenty at the public landing, actually.
Yeah,
But access could be a whole lot better.
could be better,
Yes.
access to, I'm sorry, what did you say,
Interact with the waterfront.
oh, access to the water.
From
could be-
public landing.
Generalizing,
From the
as a
community,
community do enough by the water, I was just saying, not yet.
No, don't do it. I mean, the access is mainly for fishermen, for people who do the harbor, for kayakers, for dinghies, for windjammers, but for the public, you're limited in your
Just like-
interaction, yeah.
all right, in the interest of time, let's chat about landscape aesthetics.
Yeah.
What features? Susan,
Yes.
start.
I would say native, non-invasive, low maintenance plantings.
Love that.
And I would say an ocean overlook, obviously from Harbor Park. And if you look at the drawings of Harbor Park, the plantings that are on that slope
Mhm.
were put there to block the backs of the buildings. So the unsightly backs of the buildings are not viewed. as well as, they said, the reflection of the mirrors on cars or whatever.
Okay,
Um,
go for it.
Okay, well, as far as landscape aesthetics, I put down, check three things, spillway waterfall, fishway through Harbor Park, and pound pool. And those are,
Great.
that's what I see personally from my viewpoint.
Excellent.
I felt that water flowing over the rocks, native vegetation and rocky intertidal were important. And basically just said, generally speaking, preference towards as natural as possible. I do understand if you're doing the seawall and sort of the ways that Mike, indicated where you have blocks, it's not gonna be exactly natural, but, the more natural looking, the better in my opinion.
I had exactly the same one.
Me too. Exactly. I also thought we could add in natural fish passage, just to add that option as you mentioned it, but like to add in a box, it's sort of like all natural, you know. Oh, and then also one other thing I was thinking of was the island.
Yeah.
Maybe add that. Some people might want that removed, some people might want it.
Or even access to.
And access to.
Access to it too, yeah, aesthetics and access.
Instead of climbing over the walls and hopping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything? No pressure.
I had the same boxes ticked. I would say that the water flowing over the rocks is really important for the 1C run fish that is making its migration right now. The elvers are running and the elver nets are on both sides of the harbor because they use both channels. Water that is splashing over the ledge. Into the river, up into the watershed, far, far into the watershed.
What about recreation and public access?
Wait, 1 second, so
I know,
everyone's.
we're just
good
in
with-
a time crunch.
Okay, no, but I'm the timekeeper,
I
so,
know.
all right. I just want to make sure everybody agrees. Right. Recreation and public access, yeah.
I really like the river walk and trails idea, water overlooks and river access. I definitely found that in the roundtable discussions that we've had, one of the most interesting components to me was the access points that they put onto the river. I feel like our river does not have much access to most of the town, so the ability to use that as some sort of educational opportunity seems really cool to me. Yeah.
And I added for Seth, the intertidal access.
I also had intertidal access.
You guys are getting to know each other so well.
And maybe some learning
means.
And
People
maybe
want-
some learning component, like some signage that talks about perhaps some of the mills that were there and also what you can see in the intertidal zones.
Yeah.
And signage also about what the First Nations used to do.
Yeah, I
Can
agree
you
with
remember
that.
the picture
Yeah.
that came?
Well, yeah.
Extraordinary.
And-
I think it would be great
Yes,
to
totally.
weave their work into this, absolutely.
Intertidal access, so at low tide, it sounds like a lot of people go and play in the tide pools. And they want to make sure that that access is retained in some way.
Okay, because there's a chance it might not be.
No, just what
Enhance, it's really, right now, it's not easy to go there, especially for small kids.
But there's that grounding ramp and that, I mean, retaining the grounding ramp that's there
Yeah.
that's an easy way for kids to get down.
And it's not also necessarily ADA. Which we could think
A little
about.
more.
We could make it a little bit more ADA, it would be cool.
Yeah.
I have a question. How would these things that we're talking about, the access to the intertidal zone, and a working waterfront go together? Do we think of ourselves as having a working waterfront? I think we do. I'm wondering how that all comes together.
Well, the grounding ramp was for access for people to take their boats up and paint ponds.
Yeah.
And so Mary Louise Curtis Fox specifically put that in the plan for that reason.
But I just don't think, I mean, it's just not
No, no.
realistic, like nobody's scraping the bottom.
No, I understand that, but if you have a ramp that goes down to the tidal zone, it refers to the original
Yes,
grounding ramp. Maybe something like that would work.
And I think if you identified it as something important,
Right.
I think when you're working with these landscape design firms and they're working on building a new terraced waterfront or some type of structure there for retaining land that it would be important for them to include some sort of ramp structure to access that intertidal or some sort of steps or.
Yeah, I think it's a good reminder, access to who? And
But I don't know, are the scooters bringing up some of their dinghies along there? I don't know. I can't imagine that they are, but who knows?
But I think a big one for working waterfronts really would be that we're trying to bring sea run fish back to the region that could be harvested. So a working waterfront has to have something to harvest from the ocean in order to have a job. So we've got to do a successful fish project.
Yeah.
Thank you, Seth.
community, social, and economic well-being.
Reducing flood risk,
Yes.
but not just for adjacent properties.
Expanded fishery opportunities.
Can I mention one thing, just on the aesthetic side, on the engineering piece? I know this is a personal thing, but I'd rather not see concrete. You know, I've seen where some of those places have done a blend of concrete and stone, or others have done, I think over in Bristol is more of the stone is overlaid on the concrete, so you hides the concrete. I think that would, people in town would appreciate that. They don't want to see an industrial look, I wouldn't think here.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I think Chris also, that is how, both Bristol and Damascus Mills were constructed. And we've done other things where we built concrete structures and put, original cut and put original stone, over concrete as well. With respect to this fish passage, it adds quite a bit of cost, but it also is beneficial for fish passage as well, to not have those smooth margins too. When Matt Bernier was here, for the meeting with the library board, we were having some conversations also, about, reusing some of the stone, and even to the extent of maybe even tracking the placement of the stones that are there and kind of replicating the look of some of the features pretty precisely potentially, but in new structures.
Can I add more wildlife viewing?
Yep. Yeah, those are the three I have marked, so.
All right, Megunticook River.
I'm a little confused on this one.
Me too.
That's fair. I know this one was very much in my mind when it was on the survey. I think it was a lot related to the upper dams. But one thing I have heard a lot about is the impoundment and the reflecting pool, and people's relationship with that, as well as I think the sediment and the impoundment and what's happening with that and how that will be addressed. And then the water level under the buildings, as Chris mentioned. So those are sort of the three items that I hear a lot of in town and in conversations. And so I think that's where we tried to focus in on as it related to Montgomery Dam.
Okay, so it is just about Montgomery Dam.
Yeah, that's what I know. I keep trying to remind us that today is just Montgomery Dam, and the survey was watershed wide, so it was a little, it's not a perfect match, but I want to make sure that we're bringing in what the community, did acknowledge were their top priorities. Yeah.
I would add, where it says multiple river channels, maybe add versus single or add single as a different option.
Okay. Yeah.
And then also I was wondering what expanded riverbed meant.
Expanded riverbed. Is it where Harbor Park was filled in?
I don't know what I was thinking there.
Because there was, Harbor Park has a landfill area.
Yeah.
In the intertidal zone. So
It's
is
also
this
one thing I hear about is people are very worried that if dams are removed, then it's just gonna be a trickle of water. And so I think that's also something that I wanna make sure people understand that that's not where, it's not what's happening. And so how can we, what does that look like? What is that riverbed? If, what is the change gonna look like and how do we address that? And,
So you need to rephrase riverbed.
Yeah.
And I think the expanded riverbed
Sorry.
piece,
Chris,
That might not be, just go on.
the expanded riverbed piece also had to do upriver with the impact on property lines and how that all works. People need to know what that's going to be. Does it matter? Does it not matter? Whichever it is.
So yeah,
Shrinking.
we're shrinking.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Shrinking, yeah. Expanded property. Yeah.
all right,
One
Yeah.
thing here, we're talking about in water levels here, Montgomery Dam area especially, all right? I mean, one concern is we've got to get away from the mechanical two people raising and lowering the spillway gate. I mean, it's dangerous,
Yeah.
two, it's 19th century. Really. Yeah, it's really old technology, and if there's a way to, when we're talking about grants and everything, if there's a way to improve that, it'd be good.
Yeah.
all right, we just have a few minutes more, so honoring historic use pre or post industrialization.
Educational science.
Yes. Like, I said educational science, student involvement, and signs for self-guided tours.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Perfect. And then river and ecosystem health.
Most effective fish passage, improved water quality.
Contaminated
All of them, yeah. I just put most effective fish passage over improved fish passage.
And my understanding, tell me if I'm wrong, is that the contaminated sediment removal is not that big of an issue. That there isn't that much.
That's what I.
Yeah, at this site, there's not very much sediment,
Yeah.
it's very shallow ledge, and, there is a tank in there, that had a little bit of increased, concentrations of, chemical constituents, so I'll stop by characterizing it that way, but overall, pretty small volume of sediment that I think would just be, proactively managed and also, the sediment is also not that dissimilar, from what's up,
All right, we're gonna stop, no, we're gonna stop this conversation, sorry, we're gonna stop it, because we're way above time.
One thing we did talk about, and I want to get into it real quick, is you reminded me that we talked about doing like a MRCAC half day session of some sort that we could have this conversation. And so we should, I'll send some emails and we can talk about what that looks like, because maybe we can try and do that with you, Shed, between now and the next, and who is the next meeting type of thing, the next meeting could be more of a community charrette. We can figure out what that looks like, and how we want to fit it all in, so that we can have a functional discussion building off of today, because I don't want today to be for naught, honestly. I think everything we do is building on itself, right? And I think some next steps, just in the interest of the next 6 minutes. So upcoming, oh, yes, I can. Sorry, Forrest just asked me to put this down. The next steps are, there's a lot of outreach going on, and we want to make sure that we're doing it as effectively and thoughtfully as possible. And so continuing with the library conversations, I think that was really important, and making sure that this committee is involved in all those conversations in some way. And how can we make the charrette session for Montgomery Dam? How can we get people there, and what is that gonna look like? And we'll work with UShed to develop what that will be. And I think another big thing we need to do is really work on how to share our facts and our information. I'm just gonna be pretty blunt, and there was a newsletter recently that had a lot of misinformation in it, and it's just, I just want to make sure that we aren't reactive, but we're proactive. And we, I think we worked really well with Ken Gross and folks so far, and I want to keep that relationship and make sure there's a mutual level of respect and trust there, and make sure that this committee is well represented in the community, and not misunderstood or any mistrust. And so figuring out, I think we had floated LP especially, the idea of putting out some op-eds, or like some pieces in the paper and having each of you pick a topic that you care about. And so Susan, maybe you could do a write-up on this Olmsted piece that the library is working on, and, you know, maybe, someone else could do something on how a dam functions, or, you know, something maybe seemingly benign, but helping people understand and bringing light to what you guys have just learned so much. And I feel like together we have so much great information, and let's find a way to share that and to, get it out in a more, you know, fun and engaging way. And part of that is you did create a Facebook page, so that's a fun and engaging thing.
Subscribe to your Facebook page.
Yeah, spread the word. And so that's sort of what I was thinking for outreach, and I'll probably bug each of you more and more to do more and more, because I think it does need to come from you all. And, you know, I think all of you have told me like, oh, we need to get this information out. Okay, go do it. And so I can keep, you know, helping you guys with that, and, you know, helping develop the materials and the information, and, you know, what do you think? We have some good ideas for some upcoming newsletters as well, which will be effective and helpful. And then real quick on events and, yeah.
But since we have Ken,
Yeah.
there's a few things in that newsletter. I don't know if you're responsible for writing it, but there's a few things that are actually incorrect, and we would love to correct them. Would you be open to receiving our comments just on the facts? I mean, I can't remember who said that. I mean, you're entitled to your opinions, but the facts are the facts. And if we can just straighten up a few facts,
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it would be, and it would serve you as well. I mean, it doesn't serve the save the damn purpose to carry misinformation on what we're doing. You're part of this solution as well. So if you can be a vehicle to make sure that we all speak from the same facts, it would be very helpful, and I would really like that. So if you agree, we will send you like a corrected version with those facts, and we could publish them together. That would be great.
Yes, Ray shared the email that Forrest had written,
And forests were very directed towards FB Environmental, because I think that was, you know, it's our business.
There is a committee, a communications committee that puts out the newsletter, but send.
Can you put Bina in touch with the people we need to send those facts to? I think it'll be great.
It's in the workshop. Yeah, that's earlier today.
Go ahead.
Perfect, excellent.
Well, I just wanted to share with you that, when I received the newsletter, I sent, corrections to the communications committee to ask them to send another newsletter out directing that, and that is in the works. Perfect,
So before we do that, let's make sure we're, perfect, thank you so much, really appreciate it, thank you. Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I really want to keep this collaboration and, make sure that there's some level of communication there. And then for events, real quick,
2 minutes.
I know, Deb, do you want to share the events thing? I mean, I could read the email real quick that you sent me 2 minutes before the meeting.
Well, we don't have anything,
Yeah,
Jeff, Scott is not planning to, Pathways is not planning to do a separate activity, for cleanup. This is Earth Day activities. They very often join with something the town puts together. And Allison sent me, which I sent to Dina, last year's, publicity about it. But it basically involves signing up, you get an assigned route, you get a
Busy West.
yellow vest and a bag and a poker. And she also said that there were along the river walk. There are a number of places that could use some work. So maybe just coordination with Allison. would make
is it happening on
sense.
Earth Day? Right.
Yes.
It's gonna be happening the weekend, I think, after, so the 26th and 7th.
Yeah, it's usually Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
I encourage you to do it and to do it in pairs, because it's fun. I have done it a couple of years. I love doing it. It's good community activity.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good?
Yeah.
All right, so now we have 15 minutes for questions from the public. So let me just start with Zoom if we have any questions, because I don't know.
If there's
any questions, any
people
comments?
from the outside on there, I think they're all.
They're all good? Okay, you keep an eye on it. So usually, we ask that you ask questions, not just comments, and restrain yourself to 2 minutes.
Oh, real quick, I know So we do have a lot of questions that have come in and we are revamping the FAQ right now. So that is also just an overarching stay tuned and it will happen within, by the end of next week. So real quick.
Cool, thank you. And so, if we have already answered this question in the FAQ, we will direct you to the FAQ. If we have not answered this question, we will add it to the FAQ. So it's a good source for us to have a feeling about what the community is looking for, what are the additional questions or thematic areas that they would want the committee to focus on. So that's how we've structured it. So if anybody has a question or comment, Jean, go for it.
I have a question for Susan, from the library. You said you were updating your statement. Does
Yes.
that mean your stewardship statement is being updated?
What it means is
Do you have a copy of that?
we had sent a statement to the town talking about our stance, that we were stewards of the library, and we were updating that, yes.
So that's the one where Mary Louise Curtis Bach says she didn't want, the Harbor Park to become a political.
Yes.
Okay, okay. And, I guess, are all of you aware of the Harbor Park, Save the Harbor Park that happened in the early 2000s? That went on here in Camden? I just know a lot of you are a lot younger than me. And, it would be good for, you, I know there's been research going on, and you can research what happened then, and I know my late husband was very involved in that.
Are you talking about when it went on the,
When they were gonna level the park, so that you would have a view from the lower library out, and there was a big community, involvement in that, and, I know a lot of people are still alive that were involved. And so I just wanted to say that, I just wanted, in my question was, are you aware? Because it was very, very big, and there was a vote, and it was, so I just think it's something that, takes this to another level of the importance of Harbor Park.
Well,
If you have documents that you want to share with.
Well, I think there's some things in the, probably in the old Camden Herald.
Okay,
That
so good.
haven't come up.
Karen wants to follow up on that, yeah?
Document in Bangor Daily News for that year. Also, I was one of the people involved in stopping the redo of the park. So if you have any questions, come talk to me.
Okay, we'll talk to you. Who else has a question or, yes, Roger, please.
Michael, I was wondering, as you proceed to develop the three alternatives, for the future of Montgomery Dam and the discharge into the harbor. The alternative that will have the complete removal of the dam, will that involve a structure at all, some limited small structure or something like that, that would be a fish ladder, some kind of a fish ladder, or is it felt that if that dam were removed completely, you wouldn't need a fish ladder?
No, I mean, it's pretty common, to answer your question, or to speak to the question that you've asked. It's pretty common with all of these sites that have been modified really substantially over historical conditions. There can be the need for proactive fish passage, enhancements, if you will. I think that, that may be a very, very likely the case here as well. Just based on the degree of, manipulation.
Anyone else? Ken and Karen, and then Tony.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to ask, will there be an equivalent graphical treatment of the three options going back 5 years to the Montgomery Dam report by Interflu? That there were three options. One was to preserve and protect the dam as is. One was partial removal, and the third one was total destruction of the dam. So what I'm hearing is that the graphical presentation, the designs will be on partial or full removal, but to have a fair and a level playing field of the presentations at the charrette, we need to see an equivalent graphical presentation of the preservation of the dam. So that you won't get, you'll get a skewed result if you only have choices B and C and leave out choice A entirely.
Yeah, I think the intent is to, develop the no action alternative, as well, so that across all of those considerations, people have that no action alternative and see what that is, yeah.
So, Roger, no, Roger, sorry, Karen was in the queue, and then Tony, and then Roger. Karen, go ahead.
My question is about the long-term costs of fish ladders. I haven't heard anything about that yet. Nobody has come forward to say over the years, how much is this going to increase the town budget? I'd really like to know before I go to the polls and make a vote.
Yeah, that was definitely something that resonated with me at that roundtable was how the Soamesville fish ladder is pretty intense, like people intensive, takes a lot of work, so.
Most of them that I've seen have been, like Damascotta, have been, volunteers. People in this town on average are over 65 years old. They're not gonna volunteer.
Yeah,
Trust me,
good.
It's not gonna happen. So what's it gonna cost us?
Yeah, that's a
Okay?
great question.
Yeah, I can just speak to that, in the studies we have, made some, preliminary draft accounting for, the long-term life cycle costs, which, over the long term, any sort of built structures, require both ongoing, periodically you have to do some repairs to them or whatnot. And then also just maintaining and then sort of the smaller the fishways get or the steeper they get, the more prone they are to a bunch of issues, gates and things like that. So, typically, caught, and so that'll be spelled out. I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, yeah.
Cool. So we have Tony and then Roger.
Thank you. Two comments, just in response to whether the plans that seem more developed for me, those did anticipate 3.9 feet. In answer to somebody's question earlier, of sea level rise. My question would be, is there a way for you to depict when you look at total removal, which by the way, I would favor over the plan that I had put forth earlier. I can explain that to you if you want, but it'd be interesting to see, how you can make the waters flow and how the landscape architects can show graphically where the water will go under different water level occurrences, because the drawings so far just show a big wash going one way and a big wash going another way, and that really isn't very informative or educational. And I think it'd be really important to understand if you did total removal and the natural way was down towards the landing basin. Is it possible that you can maintain flows over the current ledges? Or are you talking about flows over a different set of ledges? I think it's important to be really clear about that. And so far, those subtleties have gotten lost, I think. And so I would hope the landscape architect.
You saw a lot of heads going, yes, we want
Yes,
to see that. So Mike can just ask you with.
Including the climate impacts.
The climate impacts.
Changing precipitation and increase that we see.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Tony. Roger, thank you for your patience.
I guess you mentioned no action alternative, and I wondered if there's a way to save the dam and have action.
Well, I think, it's, status quo would maybe be a better, I mean, I guess we could, we talk about no action, but that's probably not a feasible, alternative. And so we could step forward, like recreating the current condition there, but with, reconstructed structures and not establishing fish passage or things like that, I guess, or, basically, rebuilding the dam essentially is what you would be asking about. Not necessarily no action, which the town wouldn't do anything there.
What would you call Tony's concept, the one that he tried out a year or so ago? Was that no action and saving the dam, or what was?
I would regard that as a partial spillway lowering, which I believe it was lowered 3 or 4 feet in that option, so that would be sort of in the middle of the range.
Cool. Any more? Yes, can you say your name, please? Hi, Craig.
So I'm wondering if there's been any contemplation of improved pedestrian flow. I know that, visitors come and they want to approach the harbor, and that walking along the harbor edge seems to be a very, desirable and aesthetic experience. Has there been any contemplation of a footbridge over the spillway, or any other, looking at Harbor Park, just some way to improve kind of a walk around the harbor as part of the project?
Yeah.
Show one of the slides.
One of the slides, yeah.
Hard to see from way back there, but one of the slides showed
Yeah.
a little walkway.
Back there, like swallowing a hornet's nest or something, yeah. This is an old issue, it's a long time ago.
But it's a good question.
I think it's a great
Yeah,
question. So, and I think it goes into the trails and waterfront access.
Yeah, exactly.
And those,
We have it.
those bullets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And public access and public enjoyment.
absolutely.
Excellent. Any more questions?
So if you
Jean,
look,
go ahead.
look at you that mentioned, something about, the use of this money, not the money, the money that's here right now.
Yeah.
Well, it's just for designs, is that, and for all of these meetings, is that what this first grant is for? And it's not for
Construction.
Harbor Park, or it is
No
for
construction.
Harbor Park design as well for the seawall? I'm just confused because I kind of heard all kinds of things in the last couple of years.
It includes Harbor
Yeah,
Park.
the funding for this, the area of Camden we've been talking about tonight, Montgomery Dam and Harbor Park, the design of those areas is.
So the seawall is, okay.
But just design, not construction, but yeah.
Right,
The
not.
whole grant is about design. Okay. All right, it's 5:57.
Can I ask one quick question?
Of course, you're.
Yes.
Okay, all right, no, just really, last meeting, we talked a lot about stakeholder meetings, are you gonna update us as to when they're happening?
Yeah.
And schedules, okay.
The library one, I just got invited sort of last minute, so it wasn't like I organized it, but I went and it was good.
But also,
Future parties.
but we're also looking, if there are groups you feel we need to talk to, I think those conversations are very powerful. And so if you can help us map out those groups, right, or anyone in the room, it would be really, really good, right? So, because we know a few, we have a few ideas, but whatever, whichever group you feel would be useful to include in those conversations, the more the merrier. So please make us suggestions, give us introductions, and we'll follow up, absolutely. We want to engage with as many people as possible. Tony, you had better sign up on this Facebook page tonight.
I don't think that's.
Not a chance.
All right.
Yeah.
One minute, you're good.
This was a really great exercise. I'm wondering if we could just add costs in, because that's
Yeah.
not like.
Yeah.
Will you hand me in your
That's
worksheets if you want, because then I can actually do something with them?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
All right.
You don't have to.
Who's my next chair?
Rick, I think.
Rick.
I am.
Oh,
Rick.
okay,
TH.
that's fine. He knows where to find me. Excellent. I need somebody to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Can we confirm the next meeting date?
Yes.
So they want us to do Wednesdays, is that,
Yes.
I got it, Rick was mad about it, but,
It's his usual modus operandi.
So it's supposed to be May
It's fine.
8th, second Wednesday of the month would be May 8th.
Does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. May 8th it is. I will find Rick so we can have an agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Ray. All in favor? Thank you, everyone. And thank you, everyone from the public. Please keep coming and keep sharing with us and keep participating. It really helps us. Thank you.
Thanks.